Hello, everybody, back again. This game is from the Tata Steel Chess Tournament 2021, round 3. Niels Grandelius, Swedish Grandmaster, with the white pieces versus Pentala Harikrishna with the black pieces. I know this game has been reviewed by several other people, but hopefully I can bring something different to the table that hasn't been said already. So let's get right into it. Started as a French defense: e4, e6, d4, d5. French is a pretty rare guess nowadays. But I can see that Pentala here is probably playing for a win against lesser player, right? E5. This is the advanced variation. If you want to learn more about this variation in great detail, there is a specialist, Evgeny Sveshnikov. Yes, that Sveshnikov. He's also a specialist in this variation. He actually wrote a great book on it, which I have somewhere, talking about this variation from the white side. So definitely a good read if you're interested in the white side of the advanced variation. C5, of course, putting pressure on the pawn chain. C3. I put this arrow in just to point out the directions that the pawns are the pawn chain is pointing to, and notice white's is pointing toward the king side, indicating that white has more space here. Notice that white has created a wedge in the position, right? And basically, for all intents and purposes, is cutting the position in half. And therefore, since white has more space on the king side, he usually tries to play for some type of king side attack. All right. And black, having the extra space on the queen side, usually seeks his counterplay over there. Of course, it's usually not that simple when the center becomes blocked, especially when black plays c4. Then the play transfers to the wings, and the play can just explode all over the board, where white is playing on the king side and queen side. Black is playing on both sides of the board, right? Sometimes playing moves like f6 and opening up the king side. But that's a general rule of how the strategy usually would go. White usually takes the king side because of the space advantage there, and black seeks his chances on the other side of the board. Bishop d7. This is a sideline. And the idea is very simple. It's to trade off the so-called problem bishop or bad bishop in the position. Notice that all the the pawns on the light square from the black position block the c8 bishop, right? So that bishop has a bad reputation, and so this line just simply wants to get rid of that problem right away. Okay, so that's a great idea. However, there's a price to pay. Black usually has to spend some time and winds up falling behind in development a little bit in order to trade this bishop off. So knight f3, queen b6, preparing bishop to b5, and now bishop e2. There's different moves here. It's possible for white to stop bishop b5 altogether. For instance, with a move like knight a3, queen b3, it's been tried. None of these moves really give white any big advantage, but they're kind of annoying if black's plan is just to play bishop b5, right? He has to do, something else. It kind of steers the game in different channels. So keep that in mind. Queen b3 can be played. Knight a3, for example, to just control the b5 square. So bishop e2, and now Pentala plays c takes d4. The other line is just to play bishop b5 right away. This is possible, but then black has to deal with the continuation c4, which I'll just show you briefly. So in this position right here from Cordoba Beliavsky, Madrid 1995, Beliavsky played bishop b5 straight away, which is fine, but you just have to be aware of the ideas. So c4 was played, bishop takes, And in this case, Beliavsky played the check here, and then took with the pawn. And then you can see that because of the loss of time that black used to, trade off that bishop, you can see that white has a nice lead in development, and this is why he plays this move c4. And now notice that the knight wants to go to d6 and just win the queen, so the knight is forced to move. So again, black has fallen behind in development. Knight takes, knight d7, of course, check. And this position is a tough position for black here. Okay, and Cordoba actually went on to win this game. So that's an example of of the play if black just goes straight away with bishop to b4. Bishop to b5. So in this position, you can see the idea of queen b3. So there is no bishop b5. And this position is from Asayev Rostomov, 1997. Again, if you just want to stop the idea, you can. And actually, black went on to win this game, but it had nothing to do with the opening. But black wasn't able to play bishop b5. He wound up playing knight c6 here, and then played transpose into quote-unquote normal French advanced variations. Another idea after bishop d7 that white employs, knight f3, queen b6, is a3. First of all, a3 is a normal move that you will see in the French advanced. Idea is just to play b5. But in this particular position, to play b4. But in this position, the idea is to save a tempo. So instead of white playing bishop e2 and then let's say bishop b5 and then capturing, white wants to make a useful move. So in this case, a3, right? A move that he would make anyway, a3 and then b4, clarifying the situation in the center and gaining space. He saves the tempo by keeping the bishop on f1 so that when the bishop does appear on b5, he has a chance to take it. So this is a position from Nigel Short and Evgeny Bareyev in 1997. And so bishop b5 was played, and here Nigel then played this variation with c4. Again, trying to exploit the loss of time by black. C takes, knight comes out, and then d5. This is very common. Castle, d6, and you see a position analogous to one of the positions we saw earlier. Okay, in the Miguel Alesquez Cordoba game against Beliavsky. All right, so this is why Pentala did not play just bishop b5 or try to just come out with bishop b5. That variation c4, yes, black, can equalize against it, of course, but it can be problematic being behind in development like that, and trying to work through these variations. All right, so that was just like a quick lesson in some of the variations. There's several more moves that have been tried, but I don't want to make a super long video on the theory, but I just wanted to give you a little ammunition, for the background so that you can understand everything going forward. So stick with me. Okay, so now we are back to our game. So knight f3, queen b6, bishop e2, and now you see Harikrishna just clarifies things and plays c takes d4. So he's not going to allow white to play a variation with a c5. However, black is making a concession here. By clarifying the center, he's allowing white's knight to develop to its most useful square, which is knight c3. Okay, so even though he avoids the c4 lines where, white really tries to blow black off the board, by playing c takes d4, it's easy for white to just develop his knight to c3 now. For example, normally in the French, right, let's say a move like knight h6 is played. Notice with the pawn on c3, white still has to, make some decision about what to do with that knight. Is he going to go to d2, h3? And sometimes in these positions, black and white will play this cat and mouse game, where black will wait to exchange on d4, right, until white decides where he's going to put that knight. So the knight will come to d2, right? The knight on b1 will come to d2 first, then black will exchange. Or the knight will declare itself on a3, then black will exchange. Okay? So, because c3 is a good square for the knight. So, in exchange for clarifying the position and just getting the bad bishop traded off, black says, okay, you have a lead in development, and you can have that good square for the knight. So there is a little concession there. Let's go forward now. C takes d4. There it is. Bishop b5. Castles. Bishop takes e2. Queen takes e2. Again, black has to deal with white's lead in development. Good thing for black is that the position is closed, so he's not gonna suffer like he would if it was just like an open game. Right, like King's Gambit or something like that, right? You can't really afford to fall behind in development like that. All right. Knight c6. Another move is knight e7 can be played. For instance, in the game Mavzigian and Berkis in 2003, knight e7 was played. And knight c6. All right. Okay, back to our game though. So Harikrishna has played knight c6 right away, putting pressure on the d pawn. Knight c3, and now knight ge7. You can't take that pawn. It's black. Remember, you're behind in development here. Okay, so just on that alone, you shouldn't really be looking to pawn grab. You should be looking to catch up in development. But if knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, the king is left all alone. King d8, queen db7, and it's pretty much over from there. White is definitely winning. Harikrishna played correct. Knight g7. As you can see by the arrows there, the one of the main plans of black is to bring that knight to f5, putting more pressure on d4. Sometime the knight will go to g6, especially when black is playing ideas with f6 involved, right, and to put more pressure on e5. So queen d3. Again, like I said, one of black's ideas is to play knight f5. So white is doing a little bit of prophylaxis in the position, solidifying the d pawn, fortifying the d pawn a little bit more. Rook c8, and now rook d1. Again, same thing, solidifying the d pawn. h6. All right, keeping pieces off for g5. Bishop d2 now. And now knight g6. This frees the bishop, of course. h4. And bishop b4. Again, you see black going, with his strength, the counterplay on the queen side. Most of his pieces are on the queen side, and that's where black's game is. White, on the other hand, is trying to expand on the king side and attack over there. Knight a4. So here, of course, white is trying to stifle the counterplay on the king side, on the queen side, of course. And if he can do this, if either player can stifle the counterplay on the or freeze the play on their opponent's side of the board, usually that's a wrap. Okay, like when a position is blocked like this in the center, the play transfers to the wings. If you can cripple your opponent's play on his side of the board, it's usually just a matter of time. All right, like you have to have counterplay on your side of the board. Like you have to be able to move your pawns. You have to be able to achieve your goals over there. You can't just get bogged down. Here's a good move by white. Knight a4, attacking the queen, and white has an opportunity to trade off bishops. Usually white wants to trade that his dark square bishop off for black's dark square bishop. If you just look at the pawn chain, you can see why. That dark square bishop is black's good bishop. Remember, at the beginning of the game, black traded off his bad bishop. So now he has his good bishop left, and white would love to trade that off. Conversely, white's dark square bishop is his bad bishop. Notice he has his pawns on the E and E5 square and D4 square, dark squares, right? So that hinders the mobility of his bishop. So it's thematic to trade that off, and you'll see that same idea in win hour variation of the French. Queen C7, H5, all thematic, gaining more space on the king side. Also, this move H5 is good too because it's a good investment for the end game. Many times after queens are traded off and a lot of the pieces are traded off, this pawn structure is a killer for black. I'm sorry, especially when white gets that grip formation where he has pawns on H5, E5, along with F4 and G4 in the end game. All right, so gaining the space is good, and not only good in the middle game, but it's also good to have in the end as long as you can protect it. Here, bishop F4. I did not like this move. I feel that, just trade the bishops off. That's what you want to do. This move right here is a little artificial to me. So definitely, trade the bishops off. Play like bishop takes b4, knight takes b4. Let me put the variation up. Bishop takes b4, knight takes b4, queen d2, knight bc6. Nothing to write home about, but it's a little feather in the cap right there. Instead, bishop f4, and of course, white has these ideas of playing a3, bishop a5, and then b4, maybe hopping the knight on c5. That sounds great, right? If you could neutralize the bishop. However, white is not able to neutralize the bishop after queen a5 because now the knight is threatened. So you can't play a3. You don't have time. All right, a3. Let me show you that variation. First of all, here's white's idea. If he had another move, a3, you play b4, and this would be nice. However, black is not going to give white the time to do that. Instead, queen a5 happens. This forces white to play on the queen side, right? Where he's weak, and create even further more weaknesses for black to exploit. All right, so to me, this move b3 is like symbolic of the deterioration that's taking place in the white position, right? He's weakening himself further on the side of the board where his opponent is strong. All right, if he tries some counterplay with like a3 or something like that, then just simply queen takes, a takes, and queen takes b4. Simple as that. So now he has to play b3, b5, and you can see black has the initiative now. b5, and now black is hitting white so hard now that white starts playing. He goes into a shell, starts playing passive. He plays knight b2, knight b2. Here it's time to play active. It's time to fight back. a3. Okay, you're a little worse, but you gotta fight back. Okay, that's just a little sample variation. Knight b2 is just too passive. Look at that knight. It's terrible. Again, hoping that down the road that knight will get to d3 somehow, and then maybe be able to hop back into c5, but you just don't have the time. Bishop a3. Okay. Now queen e2. Again, like passive move. It protects the knight. And again, he's hoping to get that knight into d3. It's all like fantasy. Like black is not gonna let you do all of that. So instead of doing that, again, sorry about that. Instead of doing that, fight back. Bishop d2, queen b6. All right. Again, black's is a little better here, but you gotta fight. So here's queen e2, castles, and now rook a b1. and rook c7 here. So I just want to go back real quick. So after this move, rook a b1, I wondered again, like, okay, why not knight d3 here? If knight d3, black, oops, jumping ahead of the game right here. If knight d3, then black is able to gang up on the d4 pawn. So, for example, knight d3, knight f5, and now let's say if knight c5, then black can just take the d pawn because of like knight c takes d4, knight f takes d4 because the knight would be hanging there. So at this point, white's best would probably be like queen d2, and again queen b6, more pressure on the pawn. All right, so there might be something there, but rook a b1 is definitely just like super passive. White has been forced to play on this queen side, and he has no prospects there. All right, so the fact that white's play has been frozen over on the king side and black's play is not on the queen side, that means things have gone terribly wrong. Rook c7, finally knight d3, and now you see the attack against the d pawn, like I was saying. b4, again, playing on the queen side, trying to trap this bishop, but this only helps black. Very strong move, a5. Of course, if knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and then the bishop is in trouble on a3 over there. Move like rook b3, and then that's good for white. But of course, Harikrishna is very strong. He's going to play a5. He's not going to allow the bishop to get trapped like that. And this opening on the queen side just facilitates black's efforts over there. So bishop c1, to me, that's kind of like admitting that he should have traded earlier the bishops. Bishop takes c1, and now black trades the bishop, so something is wrong now in white's position. Rook d takes c1, rook takes c1, and now knight takes c1, knight c4. The position is kind of playing itself at this point. Knight b3. Another idea is if a4, then just simply knight a3, rook b3, and then b4. And then let's say if knight d3, knight c6. And then if knight takes b4, black has a very slick knight c4. And the reason is because the knight can't move. The rook is hanging. That gives black time to make this move, that in between move. So then queen e1, and then just simply knight d4 now. Taking the pawn. Knight c6, and then queen c5. And again, black is just for choice there. So in that variation, a4, knight a3, rook b3, b4, knight d3, knight c6, queen d1, and then just simply knight c4, and black just has the pawn. Again, notice how many of these variations end up with some type of attack on d4. It's a major theme for black in this advanced variation, is attacking that pawn chain at the base. So let's go back. After knight takes c1, knight c4, knight b3, rook a8, real simple play. Rook c1, knight c6, again pressure on d4, g3, penetrating as far as you can in the position. King g2, queen a7, threatening to win the a pawn now. Rook c2, of rook a1, just simply rook takes b3. So rook c2, knight b4, rook c3, and everything's just the position just falls apart at this point. Rook d3, rook takes b3, rook takes b3, and just simply winning the exchange via fork, winning exchange back rather. Knight takes b3, queen takes b3, queen a4, queen b1 and b4, and Grandelius resigned. So nice, strong French game by Harikrishna, coming away with the full point. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope I was able to relay some nice ideas in the French. Please subscribe and like and press all those buttons that everybody tells you to press all the time. Please check the links below, the DVDs / books related to the opening here today. And also please support my channel via donation. Appreciate that very much. I look forward to hearing your comments in the box below. Also, if you know who this player is up above me, just let me know in the comment section, and whoever the first one is to identify her correctly, I'll be glad to shout them out in the next video. So it's just a little bit of fun here. So I know this video is dragged on a little bit. So with that said, I'll see you guys soon on the next video.